I downloaded Flashpoint because I was watching TTV and someone mentioned that Minol, or the acronym for the Metro Nui Online game, was on Flashpoint. Now, I didn't find it, so I don't know what search terms you would need to put in order to find Minol. Um, However, if I did, I would be very happy. Um, However, I'm starting to question whether or not that is actually true, that Minol is actually on Flashpoint. However, what I did find on Flashpoint was the World's Hardest Game 3. Now, I was a bit skeptical, thinking, well, maybe it won't save my progress, because the World's Hardest Game 3 is supposed to save your progress using a cookie. However, I tested it earlier today, and it indeed appeared to be doing so. So, this means I can actually start playing it and record playing it, with some hope of finishing it. So, for context, I don't know what context each person watching this would be watching it in, but at the time, everything that I've uploaded, well, not everything, most of what I've uploaded to this YouTube channel has been, I'll wait for this to explode first, Bionicle games from the 2000s. With intention of broadening out once I run out of Bionicle games. I have actually posted a Let's Play of the World's Hardest Game 1, and that was the first thing I actually ever posted. The first thing I recorded was the World's Hardest Game 2. But I haven't actually posted that footage, partly because that footage is... Okay, I'm going to go and change the settings here. Get rid of those motion trails. Those are annoying. Okay. But I haven't posted that footage yet because... Oops. It's 7 hours long. And riddled with failed attempts. Which makes it very difficult to watch. So I've considered editing it, just posting all 7 hours for like completism or archival purposes. So I tried rendering all 7. So it's actually recorded in 6 discrete parts. So I have to concatenate, and so I have to re-render. But when I did that on my current setup, which has like, and I did this using MoviePie. On Intel, I believe it's 7th gen. Yeah, it's 8th gen. i7 6-core and a Nvidia 1060. The GPU surprisingly contributes very little to a render process. There's a lot of mistakes, jumping and dropped frames in the post-rendered video. Oops. In the last few hours. So, and now, it was kind of my fault because I was using the computer at the time to do other things while the render was going on in the background, especially towards that latter half of the render. So I guess that may have contributed to the mistakes, but I'm surprised that the GPU could not allocate tasks properly and actually ended up skipping frames. I'm working on building a PC which is much more powerful that I should be able to accomplish these renders a couple hour about half the time. However, and I should probably actually start moving the renders over to it and actually get that footage rendered. There's no real reason why not to. It's not fully operational for what I want to do yet because I don't have a graphics card in it. I do have a graphics card, so I can test if it works, but it's a Nvidia 710. So it's like the cheapest graphics card I could find that had either an HDMI or VGA port. So it's not suitable for heavy computational programming or games. I just did it to make sure that... Oh, okay, I wonder what the green stuff is. It's an option to change what your paint color is. dumb. So if you're not aware from the context, I don't want to get on a soapbox here, but I might end up getting on a soapbox. Earlier this year, Nvidia decided to come out with the Nvidia 30 series GPUs. Nvidia 30 series GPUs have a much better price per performance ratio than previous generation GPUs. So the Nvidia 37 has close to as good performance as the Nvidia 2080, but at 3070 the Founders Edition costs about $500, and then some other brands have their own PCBs they make for it. So those will cost a little bit over $500 because they have extra capabilities such as overclocking and so on. Whereas the 2080 costs over $1,000. This makes it such that when it comes to cost per performance, the previous generation is obsolete. So if you buy the previous generation of GPUs from Nvidia, you get ripped off in a sense because you're paying more for less of what you could if you bought a 30 series GPU. Unfortunately, this is kind of an idea. Like, imagine if you put something on eBay and tried to sell it for less than the typical going asking price. Well, you think you might be nice, but with the person who ends up buying it, what they may do, and what they often would do in this situation, is just turn around and resell it. So you tried to be nice, but it didn't work. And that's sort of what happened with Nvidia GPUs. They have a very high price performance ratio, and people, when they saw this, got this idea all at once that people would be willing to pay more for them than the price that Nvidia was putting up its Founders Edition card and Nvidia's partners were doing their custom chips for. And so they, much of the stock upon release of these was bought up by resellers, which really didn't help that there wasn't enough stock to begin with. This makes it, and then this keeps going because if you can eat up all of the stock, then you can keep reselling things for twice MSRP. As long as you prevent anybody, to the extent to which you can prevent end users from actually buying any. So it's difficult to buy, and then there's Bitcoin mining involved. It's difficult to buy one of these 30 series GPUs. So I have a computer sitting there, and I didn't know that I started building before I knew about this whole GPU crisis. It's finished except for a GPU. And I can't get a GPU in it that has the best price for performance ratio available at the moment. Without paying what they call a scalper or someone overcharging for them for it. But you don't want to do that because that rewards the overcharging behavior. And it gets even more tricky because, you could have something that's at the right price but then has once been overcharged for. So then you may think, well, doesn't Nvidia have a competitor? Why do you have to buy from Nvidia? And that's correct. Nvidia has a competitor. They're called AMD. And they make cards called the AMD Rising Graphics cards. That being said, AMD doesn't really compete with Nvidia very well. And this is kind of a market issue. MATLAB utilizes a proprietary set of software called CUDA. If you write parallel processing code in MATLAB using the parallel processing package, it compiles it into CUDA code. And you cannot run CUDA on any other GPUs besides NVIDIA GPUs. In other words, you can't run CUDA on an AMD GPU. And so NVIDIA has a monopoly on computational GPU computing using MATLAB. They might go, okay, what about Python? After all, I'm not going to be using MATLAB much, if at all. It's kind of a complicated question, but not going to be really using MATLAB because MATLAB is so expensive. I'd actually be using Python practically. Well, I briefly looked up before doing this, like how you do GPU computing in Python, and I forgot the name of the package because I don't remember the names of anything very well. But that only works on Nvidia GPUs also. So the only tool you can do computational programming on with an AMD GPU is the open source OpenCL, which I don't know anything about. But it's kind of crippling to not be able to utilize that piece of hardware using either Python or MATLAB. That's irritating. And an AMD GPU is perfectly fine for playing games. Sure, they don't compete with GPUs, Nvidia's best offerings as far as benchmarks, but they're pretty good enough. But I want to do more than just game with my GPU, or potentially have the capability to do so. Which makes AMD an unattractive alternative. And on top of that, AMD's latest product release, like I think it's the 6000 series, has even worse and less availability than Nvidia's 30 series. It's like, so they don't even, so that's like everything I just said was a moot point anyway, because they can't get that kind of graphics card either. So anyway, I have a PC build sitting there for rendering and recording, which I can render because rendering mostly utilizes the CPU anyway, which is surprising because it's video frame rendering. I would think that would be a big GPU process, but apparently uses the CPU. I didn't have a Threadripper because I didn't research CPUs well enough before I bought my CPU. I have just like a Core i9 X Series Extreme Edition. So, may have made a mistake there. I should have bought a Threadripper. So, rendering might work in its current state, but recording games, not so much. Doesn't even have embedded graphics. I think I wouldn't need embedded graphics. Thought I could get away with just external graphics. Discrete graphics. Because I thought I would be able to buy one because I didn't know about the situation when I started building the PC. Anyway, it's my personal opinion that, and this is kind of an old fuddy-duddy opinion, but it's true, even though I just said oxymoron and said I had a true opinion. Making money by other means besides providing something of value to the person who's paying you is theft. I'll go, yeah, of course. If you take money without giving anything in return, that's stealing. Well, if you scalp graphics cards, you're taking money without giving anything in return. Now, you could argue that it's not exactly the same as outright as theft, because when you steal, you're forcibly taking from somebody. And the idea is, okay, so just for context, I don't need that key up there because that's another way of getting the green color skin. And I already have the green color skin by getting that key, by getting into that green color skin area a different way. So I don't actually need that second key. Because you don't actually have to buy the graphics card. You can just live without the graphics card. You can continue on with your life without making the purchase. However, you're still taking capital without providing a good or service in return. And so, in my opinion, it's still pretty similar, if not exactly the same as stealing. So I don't want to get too crazy about the whole statement, there ought to be a law, right? There ought to be a law is an overused phrase. You got to make sure that you listen to all sides and let the libertarian philosophers have a voice. Don't just go banning stuff willy-nilly. But there ought to be a law. There's lots of reselling that goes on, right? A grocery store resells food. You're not buying it directly from the... you're not directly buying your canned corn from Del Monte. So you are paying a markup to Kroger or wherever you're buying your corn, but they provide a service of sorts in that they aggregate all the products into one facility where you can browse it, walk around and browse that facility and buy everything you need at once. It's much more convenient than to buy direct. There's also lots of competition there as well. So I guess not all reselling is bad. However, if your graphics card scalp, you're providing zero services whatsoever. All you're doing is just taking money for nothing. So there ought to be a law. But anyway. Don't want to get too political about graphics cards. So I want to get that, like on my progress of doing Bionicle games, that some of them are console games, right? Bionicle the game, Bionicle Heroes, I think are 2 console games. And there's also the Unity engine stuff, such as my mind blanked. Glatorian Arena. I like to have a high-end graphics card before I play that stuff. Now, given 2003 and 2006, I mean, I have a 1060 mobile. You would think that that would be good enough as far as 2003 and 2006 is concerned. But I don't want to take any chances. And it might help to have to encode on a 30 series as well. Do like what I did with the Legend of Master Nui Alpha and encode using the Nvidia video encoder, because that worked pretty well for that application. And if I were to play Legend of Master Nui Rebuilt, I'd like to have upgraded hardware. And if I were to go on to something a little bit more intense than that, I'd also like to have upgraded hardware. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get upgraded hardware until March. So they just started posting YouTube videos. I'm trying my best to notice the patterns on what gets you more views and what doesn't. And it seems that the videos that I've posted that have them, not necessarily that like I do everything just for views, but you know, it's kind of interesting. What gets the most traffic has been Monog 1.5 and Island Investigation. And I don't know why. I mean, Island Investigation, Free the Brand Island Investigation is a horrible game, and maybe people want to be entertained by seeing me encounter all of those bugs and glitches. What I also notice is that the videos with the most comment, where when someone makes a comment, have a tendency to collect the most audience. And so if you want to help a small YouTuber get exposure and maybe recommendeds, then I guess the best thing to do would be to leave a comment. That being said, that encourages spam because it's like you have to say something just to say something. I got a couple comments from a user that goes by the username Julia D, and they both were, why don't you have 1e6 subs? So if you don't know what 1e6 means, it means 1 million. Or why do you only have 3 subs? You deserve to have 1 million subs. Well, I don't know what's up with those, that doesn't really, it's not very legitimate. I don't know what's up with, I guess it's supposed to be flattering or something. But, it's kind of dangerous to call people out like this. There might be some context behind this that I don't understand. So, forgive me, but what's ironic about these comments is that the user Julie, I know who those 3 subs are because all 3 of them publicly subbed. All 3 have their subs public. Hopefully I made sure I made my subs public. They should be. And none of those 3 subscribers is Julia D. So it's like, you deserve to have 1 million subs. That is 1 million other people. But to kind of answer the question, why don't I have 1 million subs? I thought it would be obvious, right? This, I'm new to this, and that's about it. Also, the content I produce isn't necessarily very, I don't want to say clickbaity. It's not a hot topic regime, and it's not very well produced, such as something like Game Theory, or, you know, something made by Markiplier, where it's edited like half the entertainment value comes from the editing. That being said, that some of his earlier stuff was relatively less edited, so his personality did help quite a bit. But it takes a while for something to gain traction. And what would help if I actually put in the effort to make thumbnails for things. Because I don't have any thumbnail game whatsoever. The most I've ever done for thumbnails, if I didn't like the 3 that YouTube auto-generates, is just take a screenshot of the video using Windows. As far as visual art is concerned, I do have a license for Clip Studio Paint. So I theoretically could do something like take a screenshot and then make a number, like this is part 1, and then do a layer merge to overlay them. And that would be a cheap discount thumbnail that would look a little better than just a random screenshot from the video. But that's something I'm not really doing right now, is putting a lot of effort into thumbnails. And I probably want to figure that out, because later today I'm going to record something much more intense, and I presume it's going to be much more audience grabbing than what I've been recording so far. And I really want to actually put a good thumbnail on it, but you can always change your thumbnail later. So even if you don't like your thumbnail, you can just, it's sort of like what's part of my plan. It's like that Legend of Matanui stuff doesn't have good thumbnails. I'm just like, well, once I finally get into making thumbnails, then I'll put thumbnails on those. Until then, they'll just be how they are. Because I know people can be attracted by a good thumbnail, but I haven't really heard of people being turned off by lack of a thumbnail. This is a tricky launch. There we go. And to go back to that rant, just to have more things to fill up this audio with, I will say, although I don't really want to get into politics too much, it's an accidental trap to get into. If everybody, going back to reselling things, if everybody made just passive income and nobody actually produced, then there would be no GDP and there would be poverty, right? So everyone right now is all into beating the 9-to-5 and trying to figure out how to make money on your own time. Which I guess is fine, and then try to make money passively without actually doing any work whatsoever. If everybody were to do that, then, at least in the United States, there'd be no United States. So basically you're saying, I want to do this at the expense of everybody else, right? It's like, I want to... It's not very ethical. And so I have a tendency, because of this, to speculate that whoever peddles, those who peddle, even if it's not complete baloney, right? There's always the term get-rich-quick scheme, which is obviously a way to specify complete baloney. People that promote this have a tendency to have underlying moral issues, but and furthermore, advertising isn't really a good, right? It's just a means of selling other goods. So if you make money off YouTube like advertising, there's a sense in which you're not actually contributing to the product. You're just contributing, your service is bringing in an audience such that advertisers can put ads there to help sell their already made product. that's potentially a bubble that could burst. Anyway, that's been over talked anyway. Yeah, I've encountered a lot of, encountered some, scalping over my lifetime. One particularly prominent instance is LEGO decided, whatever year they released that 4x4 crawler, I forgot what year that was. It was LEGO Technic set, the LEGO Technic 4x4 crawler. They decided to have a contest for fans to design like a third-party chassis design for it. So a new chassis design on top of the set's suspension, and somebody won, and so LEGO released it as a set, but in a special edition version, only making 30,000 copies. Now it's not 30,000, it's 20,000 copies. Now, to those of us who've been familiar with LEGO for a while and know that as soon as a set gets discontinued, its price skyrockets, which is kind of interesting because it suggests that very often people don't realize they want a set until after it's discontinued, and it makes me think that if LEGO were to let their sets, or is sacrificing a lot of sales with short run times for their sets. And yes, 2 years is actually a short run time. But maybe they only have so much resources for so much tooling for the factory, but it's like, I always think that the run times for their sets is often way too short. But anyway, that's why the prices skyrocket on second hand. But if you only make 20,000, you get just as much, if not more demand from people not only just wanting the set to build and display, but people wanting to make income without providing a good or service, basically, which to me is theft, is like legal theft. A few minutes after the launch of that, there were many scalper priced, like thousands of dollars priced listings for that set on Bricklink. So the moral of the story is, if you don't want your product to be scalped, don't announce that you're only making 20,000 of it. Like, it doesn't work in the modern age to make a small, collector's version of something, a small run something. I think it's going to be exclusive to only the most loyal fans because there's so few. Instead, it becomes exclusive to people who want to buy it for resale. It's just outdated at this point. And then I believe somebody, when the pandemic of 2020 started, decided they were going to drive around, I believe it was Tennessee, I'm not exactly sure though, it might have been Kentucky. Don't take my word as gospel. Buying up all of the hand sanitizer he could find. In order to resell it. Now, apparently in Tennessee, there's actually laws about scalping in a crisis, with crisis materials, and so he actually got arrested for doing this. But in Tennessee, there's only crisis scalping laws. Like, if you scalp something, it's hard to, I guess it wouldn't count for scalping gaming GPUs because those don't really have much to do with a crisis, do they? The crisis of gaming. Anyway. It seems like I'm getting a small bit of lag, actually. Let me try... what's it? low graphics quality. This looks terrible, but I might use it to get through this part because there seems to be a little bit of lag going on. Maybe not. It's also, this game is easier if you turn the music off because the music tempo can be different than the motion of the blue circles tempo. As I said in my, as I say sometimes, but it appears there wasn't actually any lag because the problems I was encountering before I'm still encountering. Unless there's lag despite the graphics quality. So let's turn the graphics quality back up. But I'm leaving the music on in the background, although turned down quite a bit compared to my voice audio, just because, well, I don't really want to post something that's dead silent in the background. The music is good. It's not bad music, it just might be out of tempo from the level. Maybe it was struggling so bad, maybe I'll temporarily turn it off for now. Okay. That might help me get through this. I did almost have an opportunity to buy a 3090 Waterblock. But because it was listed on Newegg for a non-scalper price for a surprisingly long amount of time. For that particular model, obviously Asus was charging a lot for it. It was Waterblock Asus. For some reason, because I thought that, you know, they could sell the Waterblock one for more than they could sell an air cooler one. But I would be paying a whole lot more than for an air-cooled one. And in addition to that, got it. I'd be spending to spend because it's a Waterblock cooled one. So I'd have to go buy a radiator and a pump and fittings and hosing to build the custom loop for it. Now I have space in my case to do that, but it's like I paid more just so that I have to do more work. Now that's something you can do as a hobby to do. Oh yeah. In addition, I already have a CPU cooler. I already have an AIO CPU cooler. So if I incorporated my CPU into my new custom loop, then I just have a unused CPU cooler that I bought lying around. And I wouldn't be able to return it after I installed it and already stuck the pre-applied thermal paste onto the CPU. So I have just a custom loop just to save money on the CPU water block, just for the GPU alone. At least I know from Linus how big a radiator I would need. I only need a 120 millimeter. And you could say that an Nvidia 3090 is actually really bad price for performance because it's only about 15% faster than a 3080. Actually, I think it's a slower clock. But it costs over twice as much usually if you can get it for MSRP, which getting it at 3080 for an MSRP is hard. That being said, though, it has 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I mean, what I do on my day job, that's actually extremely useful because I'm constantly running out of VRAM on an 8 gigabyte VRAM GPU. So if I wanted to do some large-scale simulations using Python on it, that 24 gigabytes would actually be very useful. Not enough I could actually go there, but that's what makes the 3090 a little bit tempting. For playing games, it's pointless. You might as well buy a 3080. You're paying twice as much for very little. So due to recording time constraints, I'm probably going to do levels 1 and 2 today, and then pick up on level 3 some other day. I only have about 1 hour to record because that's how much time it takes for my pizza crust dough to rise. I'm supersetting. I'm doing a stupid superset of the world's hardest game 3 with pizza dough. Ah. Yeah, so this game, I have played it before, as you can probably tell. However, I haven't been able to beat it. When I did my World's Hardest Game 1 and 2 recordings, I didn't actually mention that whole, like, editing I said I haven't, like, posted the footage of the World's Hardest Game 2. I have posted some of it, though. I left that off. I posted some of it, uploaded it overnight on Christmas Eve and made it public on Christmas Day. Just the successful attempts at each level. But the soundtrack on it is kind of goofy because it was uploaded on Christmas Day, and so I made this kind of goofy Christmas background sound. Which got me one of those alphabet soup copyright things that everyone gets. It's not, I didn't do a legitimate copyright violation. It was an illegitimate strike, but this is YouTube. This is 2021. Illegitimate strikes abound. Actually, it wasn't a strike. Just to clarify, it's something different. It was just a claim. So I got an illegit claim. That will go away after about 30 days. But yeah, I played this game, and how far I haven't been able to beat it. How far I've gotten is I got kind of bogged down in one of the areas in level 4. It's the one with those the 1x1 safe zones where you have to get between and there's like a path that's 3 units wide. I forgot the coordinates of it. It's the second last room you have to go into before the final room in that level. It has these groups of 6 enemies, 2 rows of 3 that rotate, and you have to squeeze out of those tight margins. So if I actually finish this thing I'm recording, it'll be my first time finishing it. Which is kind of a risky thing to do, but this might be a lot of failure footage. What I don't like about this are these color bonuses, because I like it. I like my World's Hardest Game more clean cut on what constitutes finishing the game and what doesn't. This game has optional content, so it has tasks you can complete that you don't have to complete in order to get the you finished the game screen. So it's like you can finish. This is what speedrunners do. You can finish the game, but not actually solve every problem, as I call it, like every area in the game. In the meantime, because some of the problems are not actually you don't need to solve them to complete the game. You just need to solve them to get these color skin bonuses. So there's like these situations where it's like, oh, I finished the World's Hardest Game 3, but without the color bonuses, or I finished the World's Hardest Game 3, but with the color bonuses. It makes it like multiple degrees of potential finishing, which, that's too complicated. Just make it everything in the game that exists Every problem you should solve, you can solve, you should have to solve to finish the game. Therefore, so every finish is the same, at least in my opinion. Um, that's what I think about it. Um, Oftentimes, these color bonus areas are much more difficult than the other areas in the game, particularly within the level they're in. But you would expect that because they're bonuses. But um, the area in which you get the yellow color bonus in level 3 could potentially, arguably, be the most difficult area in the whole game, and it's only in level 3. So, no, it's not in the last level. There's 5 levels. Unlike the previous iterations of the World's Hardest Game, where each individual room is a level, they actually have connected rooms, and so you can. Well, you see how it is, right? It's a little bit different than the previous iterations in that every time you hit a checkpoint, it saves how many yellow circles you've gotten. Because this game is merciful, it doesn't actually make you go through all the individual rooms to collect the yellow circles in one shot. That's something you couldn't do in the World's Hardest Game 1 or 2. You had to get all the yellow circles before, without hitting a checkpoint. Actually, I think there was one level in the World's Hardest Game 2 where a checkpoint saved your yellow circles. But it was a unique level. Most of them they didn't. There's 50 individual rooms that make up the 5 levels, so it's about the same amount of content as the World's Hardest Game 2. But again, there are some rooms like this one where you don't have to do anything in if you don't want that blue color bonus, because you advance by just getting the yellow circles. You don't need any of the color bonuses. Forgot the order you have to do these. You got to get the key first. Phooey. Well, at least I know I can do that when I have to do it. So that's about the same amount of problems as the World's Hardest Game 2 is. It's just you don't have to finish all of them if you want to get the confirmation that you finished the game. There's not required areas. The World's Hardest Game 4 has even more rooms. I think it has 5 sets of 12 or 60 rooms. However, it actually has rooms where it's very difficult to actually die, where there's no enemies in them. So I don't know if those count. So it has about the same amount of content as well. The World's Hardest Game 4 is definitely the most fun of the World's Hardest Game series, but it's also, up until the second to last checkpoint, seemingly a lot easier, significantly easier than the World's Hardest Game 3. But I say up until the second to last checkpoint because from the second to last checkpoint to the very last checkpoint is pretty ridiculous. So it's easier than the World's Hardest Game 3 up to that point, but then it's just ludicrous to do the last problem. I haven't tried, and I haven't gotten there on the World's Hardest Game 4. I've gotten to the second to last room. So I mean, not the second to last room, the second to last checkpoint, and then didn't see it worthwhile to invest time, especially when I'm not recording it, into doing that last task, because that last task is ridiculous. Now, the end of the World's Hardest Game 3, I've seen it be played, is pretty ridiculous too, but it doesn't look as bad. So I could say that it appears the World's Hardest Game 4 is easier. I don't know if on average is the best thing, but through most of it is easier than the World's Hardest Game 3. But the last bit might be slightly harder than more difficult than the last bit of the World's Hardest Game 3. Okay. Ah. I'm kind of being reckless with this because the hardest part's the part you do first, right? You have to get through these after so that's why I'm not being very careful. Just got to get through this part. Okay. Got 5 more minutes to record left. Hopefully in that 5 minutes I can finish this level. Got a little greedy there. If any of the people who are watching this because they came from Bionicle content know how to find Meanol on Flashpoint, let me know. If it's even on there. It might not actually even be on there. Because the search term Meanol didn't work. Searching Metru Nui didn't work. Now the Matanui online game's on there, but it doesn't need to be on there. Ooh, I almost messed that up badly. Come on. Ah, should have. That was embarrassing. I had it perfectly. I didn't know what I had. Yeah, I left on the block taunts because, well, they're entertaining for a while. Oh, I still have the music off. Well, I'll just leave it off. Can you make it in time? Yeah. Okay. That timing was not good. Well, there was no way to time that right. That was a no-win situation. Okay. Okay, well, that's it for this recording session. So 129 deaths at room C1 of level 2. So I can look at the map. So the upper right corner. Next time I'll hopefully get through with this because this isn't actually that hard, and then we'll go do the the left side, which isn't that hard either. This game is pretty easy. I know it's called the world's hardest game 3, but it's pretty easy until you get to level 3, and then it actually takes it up a notch. So anyway, if you watched this, thank you for watching it, and goodbye.